In fact, unfortunately, we face the situation in which the illumination that science is supposed to give us turns out to be casting a very long and deep shadow. In a weird way, and a few of us have now had to invent a new discipline. I think being a recovering classicist, had to invent a name for it. Agnotology, the study of ignorance. No, I mean, this is the case. I mean, in this room, this is our task. We have to invent a new common sense. And we have to do it from the ground up. We can no longer afford the luxury of handing over the generation of knowledge to the licensed scientists. All right? It's not that they're bad people. This is not a personal question. Right? I mean, Steve Chu, who's in charge of the energy policies now for Obama in this country, he's a low-temperature physicist, retooling himself as a biologist in charge of, the greening of our science. This is absurd. It's ridiculous. We have to take it on ourselves, actually. All right? And this means that we have to challenge the very terms in which modernity has been constructed. The idea that doing things in common is bound to be inefficient, it's bound to end in tragedy. Total nonsense. It's not, of course, the case that just because we do something collectively that we're going to be wise about it. But we have a much better chance of being wise. And we have no chance if we don't rethink the collective project of making knowledge in common. Maybe I'll just finish by saying a few words about commoning as a discourse, because it's all over the place now. Those of us who were using this language of enclosure and commons, 15 years ago, I had a section in Resisting the Virtual Life called the New Information Enclosures, and people thought enclosure was that we don't understand yet. Commoning, well, it's the enclosure of the commons. The electromagnetic spectrum is a common. It's been seized under the Telecommunications Act, and we need to decommodify it. Okay. What does that mean? Well, common is it's a really difficult term, because it's not the same as public. Right? Is it the opposite of private? Is private the opposite of public? There's a kind of a really interesting set, and this is nothing we're working on this now, and I invite others to help to think through this. Right? It's interesting to go back to the cadastral survey as the Westering Anglos came to grid North America. The Northwest Ordinance set up a category of public lands. And what is public lands? Well, public land, it turned out, was not, in a sense, the opposite of private. So the privatization of land was being prepared by declaring something public. Public lands was a temporary category in order to get enough people to organize, to turn in the territories, to turn into states, so that they could then further survey and expropriate the land, as it were, against the commoning cultures of North America. So common is complicated, because common actually does have an outside. We've got to be careful about this, because it's not the same as public. Are we in favor of public? Well, yeah, maybe. We are on occasions. We like public libraries, right? Public is open to all. That's good. Or is it? I mean, that was Hardin's point about the tragedy of the commons. Can everybody come and put their cows on the pasture? No. The common has an outside when it comes to resources and to nature's bounty, right? Because they're depletable. And if The fisheries don't have officially what in the history of these things called stints, don't have constraints. Then you get the collapse of fisheries and environmental refugees from, say, West Africa trying to get to Lampedusa. The Somali pirates, are often they're fishermen who've run out of fish. Why? Because there is an unregulated common. The ocean is the last great common. Right? So we have to have an idea here of a common having an outside. This is complicated. So it's local, but we have a problem with local. Right? I know that the Northwest here is full of localistas who sort of fetishize the local. But what is local? Okay, we like local, but what really is local? The children of the Bay Area, and I dare say in Portland, in my town in Berkeley, the children are now finding elevated particulates in their lungs. It's local air, for God's sake. Where are these particulates from? They're actually from China. We're now measuring elevated levels of China because of the coal-fired plants that are coming on stream 1 every 11 days in China. And it's arriving on the Pacific littoral here, carried on the jet streams. This is a local condition, right? So what price local? When we're talking about, so that's a problem. And correlatively, global is also a problem. We're beginning to hear a lot, even from Obama, about the global commons. I predict that within a year, Obama will be declaring certain strategic minerals a global common, so that the language of commons is already expropriated by our masters, in order to say that, oh, by the way, the gas under your land actually belongs to humanity, right? The coal tar, the gallium, the cadmium, the strategic minerals. Oh no, they're not yours. They belong to all of us, right? Oh, we're all globe. We know the globe. We love the globe. I don't like the globe, actually. The globe was an emblem of sovereignty, of imperial sovereignty at the beginning of modernity. Look at any Renaissance portrait. You won't find one navigator or, exterminating prince who hasn't got his one hand on a globe, right? Act locally, think globally. No one does that better than AT&T. No, we have to interrogate the global and the local. I mean, we've got, it's too serious now. We've got to have a grown-up story about, the local, the global, and the common, and the public. This is a huge project. And I'm delighted that, we have a group here in the room that is, wishes to come to discuss these questions of challenging modernity, that does not have fall back into some binary myth about Luddites being, against the future, or that, civilization is all bad, or that primitive peoples have a reserve on wisdom when it comes to agriculture. No, I don't think so. So, I'll stop there.
Let's have, do you want to take that?